Episode Y, a breakdown in Kirtland, Ohio. Kirtland, Ohio, the small town that would become a pivotal location in early Mormon history, was far from a peaceful haven during the spring and summer of 1837. Tensions ran high, and a series of legal and financial disputes would expose deep fractures within the Church of Christ and its leadership. At the center of these tensions was Oliver Cowdery, appointed Justice of the Peace for Kirtland from April 29, 1837, until September 1837, and his involvement in one of the most dramatic events in Mormon history, the Kirtland Temple Standoff. When Cowdery replaced Ariel Hansen as Justice of the Peace, it was clear that the political and social dynamics in Kirtland were about to shift. Hansen, a non-Mormon, had clashed with Mormon leaders on several occasions, particularly regarding the legality of the Kirtland Safety Society and the church's financial dealings. Hansen's time as justice was marked by a growing sense of distrust between the local non-Mormon population and the Mormon leaders. When Cowdery took over, it signaled a more direct assertion of Mormon control over Kirtland's legal and political landscape. As the Tanners explain, the Kirtland Safety Society, which was created in 1837 as a bank, had become one of the most infamous financial failures in Mormon history. Tanner's The Changing World of Mormonism, p. 183. This was not only a financial disaster, but a public relations one as well, adding fuel to the fire of Mormon dissent in the region. The Smiths and other leaders in the church were seen by many as trying to use the Safety Society to prop up their own positions, and Cowdery, stepping into his political role, would soon be forced to contend with the consequences of those actions. But Cowdery's tenure would not be an easy one. His time as Justice of the Peace coincided with an economic disaster and social upheaval within the Mormon community. The Kirtland Safety Society, the bank established by Joseph Smith and other church leaders, had collapsed, leaving many local Mormons and non-Mormons financially ruined. As the financial situation deteriorated, so too did the unity of the community. This fracture came to a head in August 1837, when tensions between Smith and his former allies, including Warren Parrish, reached a boiling point. Part 1. The Standoff at the Kirtland Temple. Oliver Cowdery's most notable and contentious case came on August 14, 1837, when a violent confrontation erupted in the Kirtland Temple. The case was brought before him as a charge of assault and battery and riot, stemming from an altercation between church leaders and dissenters, particularly Warren Parrish and his supporters. At the time, Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon were absent from Kirtland, most likely in far west Missouri, as they had been retreating from the mounting pressure in Ohio. Despite their absence, the tension within the church was palpable, and Cowdery found himself in the difficult position of trying to maintain order. On that day, Joseph Smith Sr. was presiding as the president of the Kirtland High Council, while other prominent Mormons, such as Lucy Mack Smith and Eliza R. Snow, were present as well. It was here that the first real signs of the fracture between the Smith leadership and their followers, especially those who were disillusioned, would become glaringly evident. Warren Parrish, who had once been one of Smith's closest associates and a scribe for Joseph Smith, had grown increasingly critical of Joseph's leadership, especially as the financial situation became dire. Parrish had begun questioning Smith's actions, particularly in relation to the Kirtland Safety Society's collapse. Joseph Smith, in his effort to maintain control over the situation, demanded that Frederick G. Williams, who was then a close ally, issue a search warrant for Parrish's home. Smith suspected that Parrish, a former financial secretary for the society, was embezzling funds, but Williams refused to comply with the order. Parrish, emboldened by this resistance, would soon take drastic action. It is more than likely Smith took the money and used Parrish as his scapegoat. As noted by D. Michael Quinn in his Early Mormonism and the Magic World View, Joseph Smith's financial decisions were often governed more by expediency and personal ambition than sound judgment. Quinn, p. 145. This sentiment, though attributed to Smith's character, underscores the broader issues that were plaguing the Kirtland leadership, adding to the instability that would lead to the confrontation at the Kirtland Temple. Part 2. The confrontation in the Kirtland Temple. Parrish, along with several other dissenters, came to the Kirtland Temple on that fateful day with guns and bowie knives in tow. The confrontation erupted after Smith's allies made disparaging comments about Parrish from the stand. Parrish and his supporters attempted to rise to defend themselves, but when they were blocked from doing so, Parrish attempted to physically remove Joseph Smith Sr. from the stand. In the ensuing chaos, William Smith, Joseph's brother, attempted to physically remove Parrish, and as tensions escalated, John Boynton, another prominent Mormon leader, drew his sword, threatening to run William Smith through. The situation spiraled out of control, and the dissenters, including Parrish, left the temple after the confrontation. The violence and emotional turmoil of the day reflected the growing disillusionment with Smith's leadership and the church's direction. Richard Bushman, in his seminal work Joseph Smith, Rough Stone Rolling, reflects on the rising tension, stating, "The confrontation at the Kirtland Temple was not just a personal dispute, but a manifestation of a larger conflict between those who believed in Smith's leadership and those who saw it as flawed and corrupt." Bushman, p. 324. This was not just a simple confrontation. It marked a significant rift in the Mormon community that would have lasting repercussions. The next day, August 15th, Warren Parrish, joined by other dissenters, filed charges of riot against the group of Mormons involved in the confrontation. The state of Ohio, responding to the charges, initiated legal proceedings against 19 individuals in Kirtland. Part 3. The Court Case and the Verdict. The trial, which was held over 2 days, August 25th and 26, 1837, was not a typical case for Oliver Cowdery. Usually his role as Justice of the Peace involved adjudicating more mundane matters, like debt disputes, which were common in the rapidly growing town. But the Kirtland Temple standoff brought an entirely new level of complexity to his work. The trial was held in the Thaddeus Episcopal Society church building, a venue large enough to accommodate the hundreds of witnesses and spectators who were eager to hear the proceedings. 70 witnesses were called during the trial, 22 by the state and 48 by the defense. The proceedings were intense, with the court hearing testimony from various individuals involved in the conflict. After 2 full days of deliberation, Cowdery announced the verdict. The charge against them was not sustained, and they were therefore discharged. As the Tanners note, the trial was viewed by many as a farce, with the Mormon leaders using their political influence to avoid any real consequences for their actions. Tanners, Mormonism, Shadow or Reality, p. 155. This perception of the trial as a sham only deepened the rift between the Mormon leadership and the dissenters, whose grievances were being ignored by both Cowdery and the local authorities. The ruling came as a major blow to the dissenters, who had hoped that the legal system would side with them against Smith's leadership. But Cowdery's decision did little to quell the growing tensions in Kirtland. Instead, it exposed the deepening divide within the Mormon community and further eroded the already fragile trust between Smith and his critics. Part 4. The Aftermath and Lasting Consequences. In the short term, Cowdery's decision might have temporarily quelled the immediate violence in Kirtland, but it did little to heal the fractures within the church. The tensions between Smith and his followers would only continue to grow in the months and years that followed. Smith's financial failures, along with the increasing criticism from both inside and outside the church, would lead to even greater unrest. By September 1837, Cowdery's brief time as Justice of the Peace was coming to an end. He would be replaced by other members of the Mormon leadership, such as Frederick G. Williams. This shift in local authority marked the beginning of an era where the church would exercise even greater control over Kirtland, and where dissenters would face increasing resistance. As for Cowdery, he would eventually distance himself from Smith and the church, becoming one of the most prominent excommunicated members. His brief tenure as Justice of the Peace, while marked by significant legal proceedings, would ultimately be overshadowed by the larger story of the Mormon exodus from Ohio and the continued tension that would culminate in the move to Missouri. The events in Kirtland during the summer and fall of 1837 represent a critical turning point in the history of the early LDS Church. The breakdowns in Kirtland, both legal and social, highlighted the intense internal strife that plagued the community and foreshadowed the larger struggles that would continue to shape the trajectory of the church. Thank you so kindly for watching. This is the Ex-Mormon informant signing off for today.